Last week we got through the first half of our notes on angels. We talked about why God created them, we started talking about why He created them. We talked about some of the stuff about how angels are similar to us. We also talked about how they're different than us. And then we talked about how God has in heaven a divine council, that He has angels sitting around His throne, that He allows them to participate in doing things on His behalf. Okay, kind of like God does with us, in that He wants us to spread the gospel here on earth. God has angels that have tasks in heaven. And He asks them for input. When He has something He wants to do, He'll literally ask them, what should we do? It's not because God's ignorant. It's not because He needs help. It's because He loves having help. It's like a father in relationship to his children. God doesn't need it. He wants that. And so one thing I wanted to explain, I think some of y'all were here Sunday and I explained it. What I had said something last Wednesday, I think it was a little bit confusing. When I was talking about the ways that we're different than angels, one of the things that I said is that humans were given a choice to sin in the Garden of Eden, but angels did not have a choice. A better word for that would be angels were not given a test. Angels have free will to sin. They can choose whether or not they obey God, so they still have a choice to sin. What was a better way of explaining that is angels were not given a test like Adam and Eve were in the garden. That was a test that God gave them. He placed the tree where they could see it and said, don't eat this. That was more than just them having free will. They were given a test specifically. And of course, as we all know, they failed the test. The Bible does not document the angels having that kind of a test. So that was a better word. So if anybody was confused last week, you're like, Tyler, you said angels were not given a choice, but they do have a choice? That's confusing. I'm sorry if I confused you. I didn't use clear words when I was describing that. But continuing on today, it's point number 4 in your notes. This is where we're picking up at. And it's talking about the angelic hierarchy. How many of y'all do not know what the word hierarchy means? Yeah, I just have to see. Big words. We use big words in here. This is the big kids class, all right? No, I'm just kidding. The angelic hierarchy. When a hierarchy means a leadership structure, okay? So in a church, our church's hierarchy is Pastor Steve is kind of like the head of the operation, right? And then you have people like me that are like class teachers and leaders. And then you see what I'm saying? There's a structure in our government, right? The president is the commander-in-chief of the nation's military. I don't know if y'all know that or not. He's the highest ranking official that gets to make decisions in the military. And underneath him, you have generals and commanders, and you have squad leaders, go all the way down. So angels, apparently in the Bible, have their own hierarchy. And what's even more fascinating is some of these angels look different from each other. They don't all look the same. So it's really interesting. We're going to get into all these specific kinds of angels, but before we do that, I did want to bring up the fact that some people have proposed there is 9 total different kinds of angels. There's 9 ranks, so to speak, and you can divide those ranks by 3 sections. The first section, the highest ranking angels, okay, are these kinds. The seraphim, the cherubim, and the thrones. This is the highest level of angels. Okay? Underneath that, you have this middle rank, and these are dominions, virtues, and powers. And then the lowest on the rank, it doesn't mean the least valuable, by the way. It's just a matter of the rank. You have principalities, archangels, and then angels. So you have 9 total. The 3 highest, okay, this is how the theory goes. The 3 highest are only focused on praising, worshiping, and guarding the throne of God. That they don't really have anything to do with human activity on earth. They're only concerned with the direct things of God in the spiritual world, but they don't really interact or intervene in human affairs. That they're focused on God. That's the idea. This middle rank is kind of an in-between. And we're going to see tonight, this middle classes we are told the least about in the Bible. In fact, we're basically told almost nothing except for the fact that their titles exist. We don't know anything really about these angels, and we're going to kind of explain that tonight. But there's somewhere in between. There's somewhere in between the angels in heaven and the angels that are doing things on earth. There's somewhere kind of in between. And then this third class, these are angels that are assigned directly to be involved in human affairs. These are angels that are going to be doing things in the Bible. They're going to be involved in historical events. They're going to be involved in guarding. They're going to be involved in watching over nations. So these are angels that have been assigned to do things in the human realm. So that's kind of the idea. Now again, like I said earlier, we only want to really know what the Bible says. And where the heck did my phone go? All right, it's over here. I need this because it has all my notes on it. We only really want to focus on what the Bible says. There are some people out there that have even more details. They're like, oh yeah, well I know the names of all the angels. Yeah, and how many are in each rank. Well, the Bible doesn't tell us everything about these ranks. And the Bible doesn't really tell us a lot outside of the stories we're going to see here tonight. But this is the idea. So in Ephesians, this is a verse you can put down for this. Ephesians 1, verses 20 and 21, Paul kind of uses some of these titles, these angelic titles, these angelic ranks. He says, which he wrought in Christ when he raised him from the dead, he's talking about Christ, and set him at his own right hand in the heavenly places. And he says, so Jesus, in verse 21, Jesus is far above all principality, power, might, and dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this world, but also in that which is to come. So Paul lists off some of these ranks. He says principalities, powers, might. Another word for might is virtue, and dominion. And what was that middle rank? Powers, virtues, and dominions. So you see what I'm saying? The Bible does mention these ranks, but that verse right there, it tells you that, okay, we know these things exist. All right, I'm not making it up. Tyler's not crazy. I'm not over here with my conspiracy theory, making all the lines in my tinfoil hat, right? This is what the Bible teaches. So we're going to get into now all of those different kinds of angels, what they look like, what their roles are, and some extra little spicy, flavorful details just for fun. Just for fun, okay? So let's start with that first, the highest ranking angel, the seraphim, all right? The seraphim angel. What are these things? Okay, let's talk about their role. If you could summarize their role very simply, they are throne guardians. They are throne guardians. Okay? Now, underneath each of these angel types, you have role, appearance, and like extra details. I'm going to say a lot. You don't have to write down everything I say, but the more the better, right? Because it may help you on the Bible quiz. So write down what you think is important for you or that stands out to you, but you don't have to write down every word that I say, okay? I'm going to try to keep it simple on the slides, but again, you put in the details that you think stand out or are important to you. So let's go see in the Bible where it describes these beings. So in Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 and 3, it's describing these seraphim angels and kind of what their role is. It says in the year, this is a prophet of God speaking, he says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I also saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And it says, above it stood the seraphims. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. So when prophet Isaiah sees these angels, these seraphims, and by the way, this is the only place in the Bible that the word seraphim is used, referring to angels. It's not used to refer to angels ever again. This is the only place in the Bible that ever talks about seraphims. So like this is what we got, okay? This is what we got. What we know is they're above the throne of God, and they're singing praises and worship to him. And another thing that it's kind of in this same passage, and this is why you know they're guardians over the throne, is when the prophet Isaiah, he's seeing this vision of these angels, and he feels guilty for his sin. Just simply seeing the throne of God is enough to make him feel guilty And he says, woe is me, I'm a man of unclean lips. And so one of these angels comes to him and then symbolically has this hot coal, places it over his mouth, and says, behold, I've taken away your sin. So these angels are so protective of God's throne that they are willing to do this symbolic thing of cleaning. It's kind of like washing somebody's mouth out with soap. That was the point they were making. You're about to stand in the presence of God. You can't even speak in a way. We're going to make sure that your speech is cleaned up before you come before Him. They're protecting this sacred throne of God from even the possibility of words to be spoken. Isn't that interesting? They care about keeping the throne of God a holy place. And so they're going to, again, they weren't literally burning his mouth. I don't want y'all to hear me wrong. This is happening in a vision, okay? He's not physically like they're destroying his lips and burning them. Okay, this is a vision he's having, but this is the angel saying, hey, this is holy ground, right? And the prophet knew that. So he knew he was standing on holy ground. So in human terms, so like kings and queens and stuff like that, we don't really have a lot of that anymore. There are still some kings and queens in some countries. You know, the Queen of England, she recently passed away. The guards that protect the throne of the kings and queens, in human terms, they're a really weird term. They're called Praetorian guards. It's kind of weird spelling. Just if you want to write it down, you can write it down however you think makes sense. They're called Praetorian guards. And their job is, nobody comes into the presence of the king or queen unless we allow them. We're going to make sure we protect the king and queen not only from their enemies, but from people who are just going to say something offensive or insulting. That you can't even come in here and say things that the king or queen wouldn't want to hear. So their guards are assigned on a human level to do that. And it seems like God has His own Praetorian guards, these beings that are there to protect His throne and keep it holy. Really interesting stuff. Now, let me make sure I don't get too ahead of myself now. Okay, let's talk about their appearance. Let's talk about their appearance, because this is another interesting thing. Okay, how they look. How they look. What do these things look like? You may be thinking, are they just like humans? Do they just have bodies? I mean, like, do they have armor? What are we going? Here's how Isaiah 6:2 describes their appearance. And he says, so above the throne stood the seraphims, and he said, and each one had 6 wings, and with 2 or twain he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he did fly. So these angels have 6 wings. 6, not 2. Okay, that's what we all think about. These things have 6 wings. 2 of them are covering their face, 2 of them covering the bottom half of their body, and 2 they're flying with. Now, I don't know why they have 6 wings, and I don't know why they're covering their body. I've heard some people say it could be because the throne of God and His presence is so holy that they're literally covering themselves as like a form of saying we don't even find ourselves worthy to look upon God. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, that's not said in the Bible, so it's kind of mysterious. These things it's like they don't want to be seen. It's like there's something significant about that. I just don't know what it is. So we aren't told why they cover their face and their legs. We're just told that they do. Is that kind of freaky? Okay, now I want to show y'all, an artist's depiction of these beings. Now again, is this exactly what they look like? No. Maybe not, but it's pretty close, most likely, okay? And this guy, and for the next 3 kinds of angels, the seraphim, the cherubim, and these thrones, these are the weirdest described angels in the Bible. These are ones that do not look like us, okay? And so he created a depiction of each of these 3 angels. And so I wanted to show y'all, because I think his depictions are pretty cool and scary at the same time. Here's the first one. So here's the seraphim. Here's the seraphim. So you have 6 wings and filled with eyes. Now you may be thinking, okay, Tyler, but what we just read didn't say they have eyes everywhere. But there's other angels in the Bible that are said to have eyes covering their wings. So this artist was like, well, what if the seraphims are like that? So again, I don't know if they're covered with eyes. I know they have 6 wings because the Bible says they have 6 wings. And here's another little interesting detail. The word seraphim, okay? That word seraph, which seraphim is plural in the Hebrew language, seraph means fiery ones. Fiery ones. So, does that mean they have like an element of fire around them when they appear? In this art, I don't know how well y'all can see it from there, but there's like some like flames kind of licking off of the angel. You have like those orange parts of its body. There's almost this fire kind of surrounding this angel to a smaller extent. And so that word seraphim, fiery ones, fiery ones. Isn't that interesting? Now, when we think of fire, what do we think of? Hell, right? We think of demons, right? Demons and fire and hell. But we're going to see that there's these angels, some of these angels are described when they appear, they have the presence of fire around them. We're used to thinking of fire as a bad thing, right? That fire is evil, that fire is hell and fire is demons. But actually, in a biblical sense, fire can be a good thing. Think about it as a Christian in our lives when we go through hard trials. It's like a refining fire that God uses to make us into a stronger Christian. Fire is not always used as a bad thing in the Bible. Sometimes it can be a symbol for good. It can be a symbol of a refining fire. And so these angels are described as fiery ones. That's their title, seraphim, fiery ones. That's interesting. And isn't it interesting, again, that the fiery one took a hot coal of fire, to symbolically purify the lips of prophet Isaiah. So again, these fiery ones. And here's something, this is a little teaser for next week when we talk about demons. Did y'all know that in the Bible, in Genesis, where it talks about Satan, we all know how he appeared as a serpent? Did you know that the word seraph in Hebrew can also mean serpent? So when it's describing, we're going to talk about this, it may not be saying that Satan appeared as a literal serpent, but that he appeared as a fiery servant of God. It's kind of interesting. Now, we'll get into that next. It's just a little teaser. I just want to just tease you. I just want to tease you. I want to keep that in you. I want to give you a cliffhanger. And then when we come back next week, we'll talk more about that. So these are the seraphim, and really interesting stuff. Very bizarre looking. If I ever saw this in my daily life, I would be scared. Okay, I would be scared. But now it kind of makes sense though, right? If this is how they look, again, we know they have 6 wings, so that's at least accurate. But now doesn't it kind of make sense when angels appear sometimes, they have to say, fear not? Yeah. Well, if you saw this, you'd definitely be afraid, right? Either this thing is about to kill me, or this thing is something I don't understand. And so, okay, you can kind of get why sometimes when these angels appear, they feel that way. Okay, let's talk about cherubim. This is the second highest rank. Cherubim angels. Now, we get a good amount more detail about the cherubim than we do the seraphim. Okay, so let's talk about their role. Cherubim are also guardians. They also have a guardian role, but it's not limited to God's throne. They guard other things too. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that. So the first part of that, we're going to see how they guard the throne of God. In this passage in Ezekiel right here, okay, it describes everything about them, but it's Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 25 and 26, okay? And again, the prophet Ezekiel is seeing this vision of cherubim angels, and he says, and there was a voice from the firmament, this is the sky, that was over their heads, referring to the heads of these cherubims, and when they stood, they had let down their wings, and above the firmament, that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man upon it. So again, remember the seraphims, when they were described, they were above the throne, right? So Ezekiel's seeing these, the cherubims, they're beneath the throne. They're beneath the throne of God. Okay, but they're still next to it. And it seems like, okay, well, they're also there in the throne of God. They may not be above it, but they're underneath it, so they still have some sort of role in regards to the throne of God. Okay, so we see that. But check this out. In Genesis chapter 3, after Adam and Eve sin, they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. You got a question?
Is it still two verses on here?
There's 2 verses. You can write. You're not writing down all the wording. You're just writing down this top part. You write down another one too. Okay, so in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24, after Adam and Eve get kicked out of the garden, here's what it says. It says, so he, God, drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. God placed cherubim angels at the entrances to the Garden of Eden to ensure that nobody would come to it ever again. Well, that's pretty interesting. A lot of people ask Tyler, well, don't necessarily ask me, but people have this question. They're like, okay, well, where's the Garden of Eden at? Like, can we go there? Is it like a physical place, right? If it was on earth, is it like, where was it? And here, I have some interesting theories, but I'll just say this, wherever it is, in this life as humans, you will never be able to access it. Because whether it's something where like God covered it over in the flood and now it's like Atlantis, it's like in the ground, but like in its own little thing. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's it. But if that is the case, I'll tell you this. I don't think I'm going to survive a cherubim angel with a flaming sword. Okay? I don't think any human is. So these cherubims are assigned not just to around the throne of God, but we see that God giving them an assignment to guard the Garden of Eden. Isn't that interesting? So these are guardian angels, but they're not guarding humans. They're guarding places that God has told them to guard. That's really fascinating. Let's talk about their appearance, though. All right, in the same chapter in Ezekiel, he talks a lot about how these angels appear. And so I have more to read in the Bible than I have on the screen because he gives so much detail. So in Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 4 through 14, he gives a detailed description of these cherubim angels. So y'all listen to this, all right? It's just so crazy, the way he describes. He says, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind, okay, a stormy wind came out of the north, and it says, and a great cloud and a fire unfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst of this, the color of amber out of the midst of this. So he's seeing this fiery storm cloud in heaven, okay? And then he says, and also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness or the form of a man. And every one had 4 faces. 4 faces. And every one had 4 wings. And he says, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. Okay, so they have the basic body shape of a man, 4 faces, 4 wings. Their legs are like a calf's foot. Okay, are we like?
They have hooves?
They have hooves. That's his description.
How do you have 4 faces?
Okay, hold on, but we're about to get there, right? Okay, so he's describing, this is already crazy, and we're only partially into this, okay? So then he says, okay, in verse 7 he says, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. So like a clean brass color. They're sparkled. Okay, there's interesting. And it says, and they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and they had 4, and these 4 creatures had their faces and their wings, and it says, and their wings were joined one to another, and they turned not when they went. Every one of them went straight forward. Okay. I know, it's too much to write down. So that's why I gave you all the passage, and you can go back and read it. So you got these 4 angels underneath the throne of God. They have 4 faces, and here's the crazy part. They don't turn. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're walking and you just like change direction? They don't do that. Because they got a face that faces every direction, and so it's straight forward, straight back, straight. They don't turn. Because no matter which direction they're going forward. What? What are we talking about? This is something that truly the human mind cannot fathom. All right? This is something like beyond like...
Hurting my brain.
I know. It's hurting our brain. Okay? And it says, okay, it gets crazy though. He's not done. He's not done. Okay? So they go straight forward. It says, as for the likeness of their faces, they 4 have the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and on the 4 they have the face of an ox on the left side, and they 4 also have the face of an eagle. So they have 4 faces. One head with 4 faces. And each of the faces, one is a man, one is an ox, one is an eagle, and then let me catch that last one real quick, and one's a lion. These are symbols that are used a lot to describe royalty, right? You think kings it's like lions, eagles, oxes represent strength. These are all symbols of royalty. Well, guess what? They're all 4. Right? They're all four. They're not just one symbol of royalty, they're all of them. All the ones that we're used to seeing with human kings, they have all of them. And then it says in verse 11, says, and these were, thus were their faces, and it says, and their wings were stretched upward, 2 wings of every one were joined. So their top 2 wings are all connecting to each other around the throne. It's like they're protecting it, okay? And then it says, and the other 2 covered their bodies. And it says, and they went everyone straight forward, and wherever the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned not when they went. And it says, and as for the likeness of these creatures, in verse 13, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and the appearance of lamps. And it went up and down among the living creatures, and that fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. Okay, and it says, and the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. So not only, okay, are these things weird in just their form, and not only do they not turn, they just move straight in any direction, but they move so fast, it's like a lightning strike. Okay, so they're extremely fast, apparently.
So they're Flash, basically.
Well, they look a little bit crazier than Flash, you know what I mean?
But they're as fast.
Okay, so is this not one of the trippiest things you've ever even heard? Yeah. Like, I don't know what picture y'all have in y'all's mind, but I'm sure it looks atrocious. Like, it's probably not even close.
Tyler, you should make
It's probably not even close. But let me show you, again, this artist rendition.
Oh, I want to see
This artist rendition of this being. Now, I don't know how well you can see it. Now, he decided to add one big old eyeball in the center, yeah? An example, okay? But I don't know if you can see it, but he has the face of a human in the front. Off to this side, he's got the ox. Off to this side, he's got the lion. I'm sure behind him, it's the eagle. He's got the wings spreading out. And then, by the way, for reference, it's also important, he's got a human down there.
You could see the angels.
Ezekiel, when he's describing this vision, he's talking about these things are so big that it was dreadful to him to look at. Like, I can't, this is so big, it's freaky.
Man is who?
Well, it would be like Ezekiel.
And then the ones that are surrounding that main thing
Yeah.
are...
Yeah. Now, the one thing I would say, hey, the one thing that you could say is not accurate about this is that it's missing the clouds of fire, the stormy clouds of fire, right? It's missing that, but you still got in the creature, in the chest and everywhere, you see this fire kind of around it. So, again, it's not, I'm not saying this is exactly, but this gets us in like the ballpark, right? This gets us like kind of close, right? Probably. All right, we're going to say that. So, okay, but this is crazy. These things look just incredible, okay? Now, one little extra detail that you can put down, okay, that you can put down about these creatures, these angels, is that when the Bible so it talks about them, and Ezekiel talks about them in other places. Another place in the Bible that mentions these cherubim angels is actually in Exodus chapter 25, where y'all know the Ark of the Covenant. Do y'all remember this in the Bible? Exodus chapter 25. And so this Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament, the people of God had a sacred temple, and at the holiest place of the temple, where they considered the presence of God to be, there was a golden ark, a golden, if you could think of it like a box, and it contained within it valuable things to their faith. It had the 10 Commandments in it. It had some other items in it. And so in Exodus 25, God's telling the people how to build this thing and telling him what he wants it to look like. And he tells them, I want 2 cherubim angels on the top of the ark with their wingspan stretched out over it and touching each other. And here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part, and I think about this a lot. The book of Ezekiel was written a long time after the book of Exodus. The first time we see the cherubim described in detail is the book of Ezekiel. So that means these beings had already appeared in some way, shape, or form to the people even earlier than that, so that they could know what they look like when they put them on the ark. So we see a lot of places in the Bible where God wants the cherubims to be represented as guardians over things that are special and things that are sacred. We see them depicted as guardians for around his throne. We see them depicted as guardians over the ark. And so cherubims have a very special kind of place in Scripture. They get talked about a lot. And one of the things that you guys are going to learn One of the cherubim we are given a name for. It's Lucifer. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. We're going to talk about, again, we're going to do it now. Here's the thing about Lucifer and other cherubims. We are not told that all cherubims look like this. These are just the cherubims that Ezekiel saw. There could be other angels with the same rank that don't look like this, that could look a little different. We don't know. So I don't want you guys to think that Satan looks like this, although I suppose it's possible, okay? I'm not going to say it's not possible, okay? But we are not told if all cherubims look like this or only these cherubims look like this. Maybe there are other angels with that same rank that simply look more normal to us. I don't know. I'm going to be comfortable telling you guys, there are some things I don't know. This is one of the things I don't know. So y'all going to have to live with I don't know until you get to heaven. And then you can see, do all of them look like this, or are there some other ones that I can be more calm around, okay? But I do not know. I do not know. I'm comfortable saying that. All right, now let's talk about thrones. Let's talk about thrones. We got to hurry up because if I spend too much longer, we're not going to get done tonight. I really want to get done tonight. You know what I mean?
We're not getting done.
Thrones. We are going to get done, I promise. The other ones are going to be a little quicker. So thrones are also described in that passage in Ezekiel because the thrones are supposed to be, their role is to accompany God's throne. So they're not the same as cherubim, and we're going to see that. They definitely look very different, but they're also surrounding the throne of God. Now, we aren't told that they guard it or that they guard. We're just told that they're there. Maybe they're just there because, again, God having these beings there that are otherworldly is just a way of showing off, look how creative I am. Look what I can do. I don't know, but so their role, basically, the only thing we know is that they just simply surround the throne of God. We aren't told that they guard anything. We aren't told that they do anything other than just simply being present at the throne of God. So they're there to accompany it. Okay, and here we're going to see that in Ezekiel. Okay, and then he's saying, okay, and when these cherubim angels went, when the cherubim angels moved, the wheels, by the way, and y'all are going to see this, these thrones are also called a really strange word. They're called, in the English, they're called wheels. In the Hebrew, it's this word called ophanim. So you got seraphim, cherubim, and ophanim. Okay, in the Hebrew, it doesn't say wheels, it says ophanim. But in the English, it says wheels. And so when the cherubims went, these wheels went by them. And when the cherubims lifted up their wings to mount up from the earth, the same wheels also turned not from beside them. And when the cherubim stood, these stood. And when they were lifted up, these were lifted up themselves also. For the spirit of the living creature was in them. So these wheels, these ophanim, okay, follow the cherubim. Wherever they go with them. Okay? All right. But now I'm willing to bet y'all want to know what these things look like. All right? What do these ophanim look like? They're wheels? What do you mean they're wheels? How can an angel be a wheel? Like, what are we talking about right now? A wheel? A wheel, okay? So let's talk about, a cheese wheel floating in heaven. So let's talk about their appearance. Again, Ezekiel tells us what these things look like. Ezekiel chapter 1. After he gets done describing the cherubim, in verse 16 he starts describing these ophanim, these wheels. Now he says, the appearance of the wheels, the ophanim, and their work was like unto the color of a barrel. And when I say barrel, I don't mean like a gun barrel. I mean like the stone. Okay? And it says, and they had, and these four cherubim, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work were as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So these beings have like a bronzish golden color, and they look like giant wheels, like the rim of a wheel within another wheel. Okay, like what? And then it says, when they went up upon their four sides, and they turned not. So these things do not turn. They don't do this. They're straightforward, just like the cherubim. And it says, and as for their rings, these wheels, these rings, they were so high, so big, that they were dreadful. Like, have you ever imagined, I don't know, maybe this is a guy thing, maybe not. Have you ever imagined, what if the moon was to come to Earth like a meteor? No. how terrifying that would be to see that thing coming. Like, but now, next time you see the moon, imagine that sucker just moving closer and closer. I imagine, again, I don't know. We don't know exactly how big these things were to Ezekiel. He just said they were so massive in appearance that it was dreadful. It was like he's sweating. He's anxious. These things are, how are they this big? I don't know, guys. They're so high there for a dreadful. And then listen to this. He says, and their rings were full of eyes round about them four.
Wait, that one?
So similar to what we have on that poster over there, you have these rings within rings, so high that they're dreadful, so massive that they're dreadful, and these rings are filled with eyes all around them. Okay, I think this angel takes the cake for the strangest angel out of these three. Takes the cake. It wins. It wins. I can't, how? Right? The other angels, like, okay, the four faces, but like it still has a human body. Still weird, but I'm like, okay, like biologically, I guess that could work. But then you're like, wheels? Wheels filled with eyes? Like, how does that even, how? Where's like the organs, right? Like, where's the rest of the stuff? Where's the brain? How do they think? It's crazy. Okay, so let's see an artist picture of the Ophanim. That's an artist picture of an Ophanim, a throne. Again, when we made this series right here, we kind of made one on our own. But again, this one has just the size of this little person. And this being in the sky right in front of you, I can see why. You know what I'm saying? What if it was even bigger than that? I don't know.
Any way you are, it's like the eyes are still looking at you.
Yes, and it doesn't matter. Hey, y'all hear what Carson said? It doesn't matter where you go. You have multiple eyes looking at you at all times. You cannot escape this thing's sight. It's always looking, always watching.
It must have the best day. Hey, it's like that.
Dang.
That thing would be deadly in combat.
Now I'll say this, okay? Something that people will say, okay, not that this is relevant because I don't agree with this, but I've heard some Christians say that these three angels that were just described, the seraphim, the cherubim, and the Ophanim, that their description is not literal, it's symbolic. Like, he's seeing a vision. That's not what the angels literally look like. They're just appearing like that in the vision, and they talk about how all these different visuals have a meaning about like the human kings and stuff. I just want to tell y'all, I don't think that's what's happening. I think there are actually literally angels in heaven that look like this. I'm not going to say all the angels look like that. But I'm telling you, when I think about God and His creativity and His power, these things show His power. That He can make a wheel within a wheel an angel and it works. That's fascinating. And to me, that's like, man, God deserves so much glory because I would have never even thought of that, right? This is something so far beyond what a human could just come up with, right? And so I do think that these descriptions are what He actually saw. I don't think they're just symbols. I think these are actual descriptions of what these angels look like. Again, maybe not all the cherubim and all the, well, I guess the Ophanim, wheels, I'm sure they're all wheels. But again, maybe there's some other ones in there, but these are the ones that we get described, and man, it's crazy. Q. Well, we are never told that any angels are specifically white or black. This artist depicted as white and like the bronze color. The Bible just describes it as kind of having the bronze, like fiery color. So again, I think this is just more of an artistic choice. That's what I'm saying. I was like, this isn't going to be exact, but this gets us in the ballpark of like, okay. Huh? Well, in terms of these angels, I don't know that they even have an angel with an ox and a lion, there's all kinds of colors in that, right? You got all kinds of shades of brown. But in terms of like the angels that we're going to see later, the ones that are more human looking, I think there's going to be a variety of them in terms of like how they appear in terms of their skin complexion and their hair, and I think there's probably a variety in there. The Bible never tells us, but I think there's probably a variety. It would make sense. Okay, now I've only got like 10, 15 minutes left, so let's hurry up. Now, these, like I said before, these middle three angels we're going to make them all 1 point. Because again, the Bible doesn't give us details about what they do or what they look like. So it makes no point splitting them up into like 3 different slides and going over it. So what I want to say about these 3 ranks here, okay, the dominions, the virtues, and the powers, the one thing that Paul tells us, okay, about these angels is that Jesus Christ is above them, like he's above all the angels, but he mentions them in this passage here, okay, and this is the point if you're going to put in, Paul does say that they are lower than Christ. That's a fill in the blank in your notes, so you can go ahead and put that. Paul does say they are lower than Christ. What? The first one. What? We are not given. Sorry, you're right. Where's that at? We are not given details about their role or appearance. That's what sorry, you're right. I didn't have that slide. We are not given details about their roles or appearance. And so then you have this blank. Paul does say that they are lower than Christ, and here is the verse where he says that. Okay? Ephesians 1:21. And he says, referring to Jesus, he says, he's far above all principality and power and might, which what does might mean again? Virtues. And it says, and dominion. And he goes, and every name that is named, not only in this world, but also in the world to come. So Jesus is far above in rank. He outranks these dominions, powers, and virtues. But that doesn't really tell us anything about what they do. It just tells us they're lower than Christ, maybe higher than others. That's all we know. And so I hope you guys, again, I'm going to tell you, what about these angels? I don't know. I don't know what they do. We are not told what they do. That's all I can say about these. Unfortunately, until we get to heaven, all we know is that they exist, right? Hey, don't turn that off yet. Nope, I'll turn it off. Thank you. All right, here we go. We don't have a picture. There's nothing. We're never told what they look like. So we're going to have to move on to the next one that we do know about, principalities. Principalities. We're going to have to. There's nothing else. I can't make it up. I can lie and make up things, but I'm not going to lie. Yeah, hey, we're going to go through these pretty quick, all right? Because I know we're running short on time, but I'm going to get it done tonight. I told you I'm going to do it. Okay? Principalities. Let's talk about the principalities. What is their role to lead over nations? To lead over nations. All right? And here is the passage in Scripture, very mysterious, about these principalities, these angels. Daniel chapter 4, verses 13 to 17. Here is one of the only places in the Bible where we see one of these angels talk to humans. Yes. If they did not, I would not tell you they did. All right, so Daniel chapter 4, and verse 13 says, and Daniel is, there's a king that's talking to Daniel. He's had this dream, this vision, and he wants Daniel, the prophet, to try to tell him what this means. So the king says, I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. He calls these angels watchers. Watchers. What are they watching? Watchers. Okay, but so then this angel comes to this king and proceeds to tell this king that judgment's going to come on him for his leadership. And so I'm going to jump down to verse 17, and here's what the angel says to finish off his statement. He says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdoms of men and gives it to whomever he will and sets up over it the basis of men. So this angel gives this word of judgment to this king and says, what I have just told you is by the decree of the watchers. To remind you, to remind you that God is in control of your kingdom. And he allows anyone to reign whom he decides. In other words, you're not in control. God has declared this in his counsel and sent us, the watchers, to come and tell you this. Whoa. Okay, so the word watcher. This is in y'all's notes. The word watcher. Here's what it means. Wakeful one. A watcher is a wakeful one. So these angels, these principalities, are assigned to lead over a nation. They are assigned to be God's direct line of communication to these kings and these leaders. And these angels are supposed to watch over what these nations do and report back to God. And if God wants to judge these nations, He sends His watchers to go back and declare the judgment. I'll just tell you this. When I first read this passage, when I first read this passage, can I tell y'all? I was like, dude, this is by the decree of the watchers. That just sounds really cool. The watchers. Very mysterious. It's like the angel shows up. Hey, yeah, you're going to be judged. This is the decree of the watchers. Bye. What? What are the watchers? Wait, what do you mean? Right? I mean, now you can imagine the king is probably freaking out. Okay? And so these watchers are also called principalities. So these watchers that's what they are. And so in the Greek, you can put this in your notes. It's probably a question next week. The Greek word for watcher is this little funny word in your notes. It's Grigori, or Grigori. It's a really weird word, but it means watcher in Greek. I know it's there. It's already there. You don't have to write it, but I'm saying say that it is from the Greek language. That's the important part. What? How do you spell Greek? All right. I don't know if I can help you with that one, all right? So these watchers are assigned over nations, and their job is to report back to God what these nations are doing. And when God makes a decision, He sends them off, says, this is my decree, go and deliver it. Very interesting. So these principalities are assigned to lead over nations, and they have some authority on behalf of God to issue decrees. Wow, bet y'all didn't know that. Hey, we're learning something new every day, right? Okay, but. The Bible never tells us what they look like. Here's what I'm going to say. Let me tell you all this. For the next three angels, the principalities, archangels, and the angels, it is very likely they all look like us. Every time these angels show up, people don't freak out, okay, in the same way that they do with these other angels. In fact, there's places in the Bible where we just see these last three angels, when they show up, they look like men. They look like people. And so it's very likely that these angels, remember what's the lowest three angels? What are they responsible for? Humanity. Okay? So it would make sense then that these angels look more like us, so that we can communicate with them and be a little more comfortable, right? If these angels are going to be getting involved in human affairs. And so the Bible, again, doesn't tell us exactly what they look like, but there's a lot of hints that they just simply look similar to us. Okay, so with that in mind, do I really need to show you a picture of what a human being looks like? No. Okay, do I really need to show you? Now, hey, one thing I am going to tell you is you're going to be like, no, I can't believe that, Tyler. Neither the principalities, nor the archangels, nor the angels, none of them are said to have wings. The Bible never says those three groups have wings. That doesn't mean that they can't fly. They're supernatural. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying, hey, listen, I'm not saying they can't have wings. I'm just saying the Bible never says they do. So that may burst your bubble because you like imagining all the angels have wings, but the Bible doesn't say they all have wings. I'm just saying, okay, let's continue on. We got to finish. There is no picture. You got to use your mind, Q. Hey, imagine yourself because you're an angel. I'm just kidding. No, you're not. I was trying to boost your ego, King. Trying to help you, see yourself in a positive light. No, that's definitely not what's going on. All right, anyway. All right, so archangels. What are archangels? What do they do?
Angels.
Okay, let me tell you what their role is. It's very simple. They lead over angels. So the word arch, A-R-C-H, means chief. They're a chief angel. They're commanders over the other angels. Okay, so the archangels are chiefs over the angels beneath them. You got a Q? You got a Q? Q? Yeah, that's what I meant. You got a Q?
Ark, like, so you talking about Noah's Ark?
No. Ark, A-R-C-H.
Oh, okay,
Ark means chief. He's the chiefs over the angels. Okay. There is their role, you guys, to lead over other angels. Here's a quick passage that talks about this. And this is talking about an angel you guys may have heard by name before. So anyway, this angel is coming to Daniel, and he's trying to deliver a message, and he says this really mysterious thing. He says, he says, the reason I was late to giving you this message, he says, is because the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, he says, Michael the archangel, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. It says, now I am come to give you this message of what shall happen to the people in the last days. So this low angel, lowest on the rank, was assigned to bring a message to Daniel, and he says, the prince of Persia stopped me from doing this for 20 days. A fallen angel, a principality, was stopping this lower angel from delivering a message. And Michael the archangel had to come and free him. Yeah, that happened. Is that weird? Wait, angels and demons are like fighting? Like how does this fallen angel, this prince of Persia, it's not talking about a human prince. It's talking about a fallen angel, a principality, who is supposed to be leading the nation of Persia, apparently became evil and is now going against God's angels.
What was his name?
The angel here? We don't, Prince of Persia. We don't get a name. It just says this fallen angel, this prince of Persia, was trying to prevent an angel from delivering a message. And Michael, listen, the archangel had to come in and pull him out of that. Okay, so now hold on. No questions. I got to finish. I'm at the end. Okay, so we know that the role of Michael, and by the way, he's the only archangel named in the entire Bible. We don't get any other angels that are said to be archangels. He's the only one. Now, that doesn't mean he's the only one that exists. He's the only one the Bible talks about. Okay, so Michael the archangel is going to lead over these other angels. He's going to protect them. Okay? And again, like I said before, as far as the appearance goes, we're led to believe they probably just look like us. That they still have supernatural power. They're not humans, but they have the appearance of human beings. I'm not an angel. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm sorry. I am not an angel. And by the way, we're almost done. Okay, here we go. And then lastly, no extra details. We don't have time for that. Lastly is just angel. Normal, little old angels. Okay? And I say little. Hey, they're still more powerful and intelligent than us.
Oh, that makes no sense, dude.
Hey.
How are angels and then there's an angel?
What do you mean? There's archangels, chief angels.
No, you get it though.
But the word angel, hey, what did I say towards the beginning? What does the word angel mean? It means... No. The word angel means messenger. An angel in the Bible are messengers. So the role of normal angels, like the angels that we think about, the normal angels, they have two things that they do. They're messengers and they're protectors. They're messengers and they're protectors over humankind. So they send messages to humans. We see that a lot in the Bible. They also can protect and guard over humans. Where the cherubim guard over God's throne and heavenly things, normal angels, as we think of them, are messengers and protectors over us. Okay? And so we're going to see right here in Luke 1:19, the angel Gabriel. He's the one who delivered the message to Jesus, to Mary, that she was going to be born, or she was going to birth Jesus. But here he's talking to Mary's cousin and talking about them, and it says, the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel that stands in the presence of God, and I am sent to speak unto thee and to show you glad tidings. So Gabriel is never called an archangel. It's assumed that he's a normal angel. Okay? And so he was sent to give message to Mary and her cousin that they were both going to be born. are both going to birth children. One, John the Baptist, the other, Jesus. So they have a messenger role. But another thing they do is they have a protector role. In the Old Testament, this is a crazy story. We're going to finish on this for tonight, all right? In the Old Testament, here's this crazy story. The prophet Elisha has a servant with him, and they end up getting surrounded by an enemy army. They're outnumbered with nowhere to go. And this is where this picks up at. Y'all check this out. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 15 and 17. It says, "And when the servant of the man, prophet Elisha, was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host, an army, compassed the city, both with horses and with chariots. And his servant said unto Elisha," he says, "My master, what are we going to do? We're surrounded by these people. Like, what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go?" And then it says, "And Elisha answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them." He goes, "Don't worry, there's more of us than there is of them." It's just Elisha and his servant. Okay, so what's going on here? And it says, "And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray you, open my servant's eyes. Open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding Elisha." The mountain was filled with angels specifically sent to protect Elisha and his servant. Remember when I told y'all that the spiritual world is similar to Stranger Things, that you can literally be in the same room in the other dimension? Here's a moment where we get a peek. There's angels on these mountains, and from the human perspective, you can't see them, but they're there. And so Elisha had to pray, God, can you supernaturally allow him to see the spiritual realm just for a moment so he can understand you're protecting us? Wow, that's crazy. Guys, there's all kinds of stories that I wish I could get into of actual missionaries recently having experiences like this. Crazy stuff. I don't have time to get into that tonight, unfortunately. But we're going to get back around to that in the spiritual warfare part. The last thing I want to say, in terms of extra details, and we got to be done. I know. There's so much more, guys. My notes were even longer than what I have tonight, and I didn't even finish my notes from tonight. Okay, I need y'all to understand I'm struggling because I want to tell y'all everything. But we have to move the series along, you know what I mean? The one thing I'll say, here's an extra detail that I want you guys to remember, though. Angels can be among you, and you literally would not even know it. There's this mysterious verse in the Bible, and you can write the reference down. Hebrews 13, verses 1 and 2. Paul tells the Christians, he says, "Let brotherly love continue, and be not forgetful to entertain or be nice to strangers." He says, because some have entertained angels completely unaware. That there can be angels that look just like human beings that can show up for the purpose of testing you to see if you will treat people the way God wants you to as a Christian. That you could literally have a homeless man who's actually an angel, and God is wanting to know, how you doing? How you doing on treating other people with respect? This is what Paul says. He says, let brotherly love continue. Don't be forgetful to be benevolent and nice to those who are in need, because some people have done so to angels and not even known it. I don't know about you guys. That makes me go, how many angels have I come across in my life and had no clue? If y'all remember the story that I shared with y'all when we went on this river trip, and this guy that we came across while we're going down the river, he's like a drunk mess. And he's saying insulting things to us, you know. But then he starts asking questions about the Bible. And at first we were all ignoring him because it's like, nobody wants to talk to this kind of a guy. And so I just felt something in my heart. I'm like, man, he's asking questions about the Bible. It sounds to me like he wants to know more, and he doesn't have anybody to show him. I'm like, here I am. I'm a youth pastor, for crying out loud. I study the Bible. Maybe I should just talk to him. And I spent about 15 minutes talking to this guy. He kept asking question after question. I could tell he was interested. And by the end of it, he was like, it seemed like he wanted to take his relationship with God to the next level. He was sorry for the way he had treated us. And you know what? And I didn't even think about this until I got home. And then Shay was like, what if that guy was an angel? And I'm like, I don't know if angels, are allowed to act like they're drunk or not. I don't know if they're allowed to do that as part of their testing. But I'm like, you know what? I would never know until I get to heaven. I suppose that's a possibility. Now, I kind of want it to be true just because it sounds cool. Hey, you know what though? That could have just been a guy who really did need to hear about Jesus. Either way, we should be aware of, as Christians, that angels can be sent by God to test you. And so we need to always, as Christians, be doing what we need to be doing, right? We need to be treating people with respect, right? And that's the point that Paul's making. And so anyway, we're going to finish there for tonight. I really hope that y'all were interested, y'all are fascinated, you learned some things you didn't know, okay? And next week, we're going to start talking about demons. We're going to talk about how they fell. We're going to talk about why Satan fell, why he sinned. And there's a lot more there. And then my favorite part, y'all sit down. I just want to finish. I'm going to say a word of prayer. And my favorite part of this whole series, guys, is going to be spiritual warfare. The way in which we as Christians are supposed to be fighting spiritual warfare. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited. This stuff has been blowing my mind as a Christian. Yes?
There's a movie of like a guy that comes across an angel and he doesn't realize it.
Yeah.
There's a movie.
Yeah. It's true. Well, tell me that movie later. All right, but hey, let me say a word of prayer, and we'll be dismissed because we are running behind. Dear God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for everything that you have shown us here tonight in your word, God. You tell us so much more about angels than I think a lot of us realize. And God, I pray that you help us as fascinating as these things are. And God, it is fascinating. And I know we can't wait to go to heaven and see all the wonderful, interesting things that you've created. But God, as we continue through this, just again, help us to stay focused only on what you tell us. Help us not to run wild with theories, God. Help us not to go too crazy about things we don't know. But help us just to trust that what you do tell us is good enough for us to know here in this life, God. And help us to be more aware that, God, we need to be aware that there could be angels around us. That, God, that you have allowed to come in and test us. And so, God, help us as Christians to show love and hospitality as we should be to all people. And, God, help us to be that example we need to be to a world that's lost and needs you. And, God, help us to do it with genuine love in our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen.